Hi, everybody. This is Kathy L. Murphy, the Pulpit Queen. I'm reporting live from my little cabin in the woods, Murphy's Law. And I'm here tonight. You know, I'm really bohemian. I've been painting all day, so I threw a scarf on so I look good for David Valdes, who is our playwright, author extraordinaire. He's been with us for a long time, and he keeps getting younger and younger. Now he's got a great new book, Spin Me Right Round by David Valdes. And let me tell you, David and Robert Waltney, who helps me run my book and film club, were on Jacob Marquez's reading corner. And I have to tell you, of all the book conversations I've ever seen, that's my favorite one of all time. I thought it was the most authentic. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. I told Jacob, please get that so we can share, because that was a wonderful story. And I hope we can get that whole ambiance back tonight. So I'm going to first turn it over to David and let him tell everybody his backstory and how we got to meet for his book, The Rhinestone Sisterhood, years ago. I just love David. He's so talented in so many different ways. I didn't even know he could play the piano until he entered our girlfriend weekend talent competition. And we were all kind of, what? You know, it's always amazing the hidden talents of our authors. But I do feel that if you're gifted in one thing, you can be gifted in many. And you are, David. You are definitely, you're a great father. You're a great human being. You're a wonderful writer, screenwriter. Come on, every Tuesday, I'll keep saying it. So I'm turning it over to you, and I'm going to let you talk.
Hi, it's David Valdes, and I'm so happy to be here. So I've been a part of the Pulpwood family for about a decade now. I think it was 2012 that I got to go to Girlfriend Weekend. And one of my favorite author pictures ever is me and Kathy at the costume ball. I was the rabbit from Alice in Wonderland, and Kathy was Mame, I believe.
Yes, I was Auntie Mame.
Auntie
Yep,
Mame.
I guess you were my Patrick.
Yep. So it was great. So my backstory. My backstory is like, I have a friend who jokes that my life is full of incident, and it's kind of true. I have the whole American experience in my backstory. My father is a Cuban immigrant. My mother was a small town farm girl from Maine. When I was growing up, my parents were divorced, and so I would go to school in rural Maine among only white Seventh-day Adventists, religious fundamentalists, and then I would go to Miami in the summer with only Cubans in Little Havana. So I was navigating all of those things, those very different worlds. I grew up in welfare, super poor, but I went to a church school, so there was kind of like a private school quality to things, even though like I'm super poor, but at a private school. I knew that I was gay from the time that I was 6. So my whole life has been moving between different kinds of people, and I think as a result of that, and I think it's partly being the Cuban side of my personality dominates. I just love people. I love telling stories. I'm just a crowd person. I love to gather folks. I didn't start writing. Well, I knew that I liked plays when I was a kid because my aunt took me. When we were poor people, we didn't have access to that sort of thing. My aunt got tickets to a play and nobody would go because we didn't do that sort of thing. So I was 9 and I'm like, pick me. And I got there. It was a production of The Fantastics, and there was this mute character in the show who actually like provides a lot of the like setting and like kind of keeps the story moving along. And the woman playing the mute, this young woman playing the mute, it was very 70s, very Fosse. She was dressed in like a bowler hat and like a vest. But she came out at one point. There was a ladder on the stage with a fishing, like a bucket at the bottom of it. And she came out with a fishing pole and she climbed up the ladder wordlessly. And she let out her line and it dropped into the bucket. And then she started to reel and it lifted a moon out of the bucket. And the stage went dark and a spotlight followed the moon into the sky. So she reeled up a moon on a fishing line. And I was like, There we go, right? This was magic to me. Um, but I didn't write a play until I was in college or late in college, and I didn't write a book until actually my daughter was born. So I was 38, and I had been writing columns at that point, and the Boston Globe asked me if I would write a column for them. And so I did. I worked on a column for them, rotating with 3 other authors for a year. And just about the time that wrapped up, a publisher said, "Hey, would you write about what you've been writing about?" Which was at the time about gay marriage, and being a dad, being a gay dad. And I was like, "Write a book? I have a 4-month-old. I have a 6-month-old. That's insane. There's no way I can do that." "Yes, please, I will. Thank you." Um, and then it was kind of off to the races. I had never thought that I could write a book before that, but I have now, they're coming out my ears. I have that book, which was called Homo Domesticus, Notes from a Same-Sex Marriage, and a book after that called The Little Fruitcake, which is called A Little Fruitcake, A Childhood in Christmases. And it was a Today Show pick. When that came out, it was about, being a kind of flamboyant little kid in rural Maine at Christmas time. I wrote a book called The Rhinestone Sisterhood, which is the book that came to the attention of the Pulpwood Queens. I spent a year following around agricultural festival queens on their royal duties. And I had done some, like I did wild turkey in Ohio, and I did rhododendron, and I did rattlesnake in Texas. But I ended up, my agent was like, "You really need to settle down somewhere, and so you can really get immersed in the culture." So I spent a year going down on weekends to Louisiana, and I followed the frog, fur, cotton, and cattle queens for the year. And it was a phenomenal experience. It was fantastic. So that book was the book that brought me to Pulpwood. And through that experience, in addition to meeting Kathy, I met Carolyn Turgeon and Janine Cummins, and we palled around. We went dancing on our last night there while still in our costumes from the ball. So we went to a little bar in Jefferson, and we danced while dressed as a star and a mermaid and a white rabbit.
Nobody probably even blinked an eye by then, because I've been doing it 12 years.
Yeah, not a look, not a bit. Nope, we were totally comfortable. So it was a really lovely weekend, lovely experience. And I've always hoped, I'd have a reason or a chance to come back. So this book, Spin Me Right Round, is the first of 2 books with Bloomsbury. So there's this book, which just came out next year in January of next year. A book called Brighter Than the Moon will come out. And I can't say by who or what yet, because the contract hasn't actually officially signed, even though I'm a third of the way through it. But end of next year will be my first Christmas novel, which I'm excited
The book is called Brighter Than the Moon.
Brighter Than the Moon is the name of the one coming out in January. And then I'll have a different book that I can't tell you the name or publisher of until eventually that will come out in December. So next year will be a 2-book year, which is unbelievable to me.
Wow. Well, Mandy, can we tell them what our theme is for Girlfriend Weekend next year? You tell them.
Well, you go ahead. I think we have to tell them.
We have to. We
Okay.
have to. Our theme for next year is Over the Moon.
Okay.
Over the moon, because we are over the moon about our authors, and there's so many people coming out with books with the moon in it that
Wow.
This is weird. I have chills going up and down my back. So, and I don't want to interrupt, but I had to tell you that because that's just wild. Okay, go ahead.
That's great. And I'm just glad to hear that, because there was some talk at the publisher of changing the title.
No.
And they tried out several things and other things, and I was like, and in the end, they all came back to, oh, how about Brighter Than the Moon? Like it came back to where we started, which is the title that I wanted. And that book is also a young adult novel. It's about three young people who are all mixed in some way in identity, who are navigating the gaps between their online selves and their real life selves. And they're a little bit Cyrano, and it's a little bit of a love triangle, and it's a little bit Perks of the Wallflower.
Oh, I'm going to love it. Is it set in the 80s or is it set in what time?
It's set in the present.
Oh, great. Well, this will be a good book. I'm so excited. And it
Thank
comes
you.
out in January.
January, yes,
We've
it
got to
does.
get these books. We've got to get them. And you know what? I don't think I've read your first two books. Can you still order them?
Sort of. I mean, they're all like, everything is now like ebooks. I think that you can order the paperback edition of Homo Domesticus. Little Fruitcake is really hard to come by,
Oh, I really want to read that.
the Christmas
Well,
one.
Well, I'll get on the look. Send me the titles and I'm going to get on the look and see
Okay.
what we can find because I really like to read them, David. I love it. Okay, go ahead.
Well, that's the backstory. You said, what's my backstory? So that's the backstory all the way up to the present.
Well, this is fantastic news. And I'm trying to think how many times we've had this conversation about this book, but I learned something new every single time you talk about it. And every time I have an author on, I go, why wouldn't people want to come to our Tuesday night book club? You learn so much. And I also learned backstory, the fact that you wrote for the Boston Globe. When I pick these books, I have no idea what authors do for a living when I pick their books. And when they come, I'll never forget when Empty Mansions author came, he said, oh yeah, he goes, he called me and he said, I've got a little bit of a problem I know I'm down for girlfriend weekend, but I'm taking a new job. And I said, oh, what are you going to be doing? And he said, oh, I'm going to be editor of Newsweek. Oh my God.
Oh, you know.
Yeah, oh. And
These
so
things happen.
I just I feel like people come into my lives and it's okay that I'm kind of glad that I don't know because I wouldn't want, I want to pick the book on the merit. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to pick the book because I think there's somebody important or whatever. So I'm really excited that you're here. Now, have you toured for this book?
Well, unfortunately, my launch was in January, right? It was the book was delayed. It was supposed to be November, and then December, then January because of supply issues. And Omicron had just bounced, everything that was supposed to be live ended up going virtual. So I have had the events for I had the launch party. I've done virtual book tours with, I don't know, 3 or 4 bookstores now, a number of events that way. I also, Lambda Literary and the New York City Public Schools asked me to speak to a number of high schools in New York. So I've spoken to schools in the, I guess it's Bronx and Harlem. And then there was a school, not a school, like a community, a queer community youth group in Montana that made the book their common reading for all of their youth group. And they were looking for donations. The way they work is that they'll choose a book for all their youth, and then funders each donate a copy of the book. And I just saw that on the web and I was like, oh, that's so neat. So I reached out to them and said, hey, once they've read the book, if you want me to come, I'll visit with them. And so I did a late night. It was late night for me. It was Montana. It was evening for them, but it felt late to me. But I did like a session with them, and yeah. So I've already done the sort of online, book tours for this, and I have more coming up because this is the British cover. The British edition launches at the end of May, so I have events coming up online in the UK.
You don't get to go to London or anything like that?
No, I would. I'm not above it, let me tell you.
I know. Wouldn't that be awesome? My biggest thrill is that, I take my authors around the world and doing book signings. I mean, if you can dream it, you can achieve it. That was one of my authors' books. So
Yep.
I really try to put that out there. I really would like to see, I think when this all opens up, David, you're going to be invited everywhere. It doesn't matter that your book, came out during COVID. everybody's going to be playing catch up. So we definitely want you to come to Girlfriend Weekend because we're going to help you. Do you know what date your book comes out?
January 10 currently.
Oh, that's perfect because our event is the 14th, 15th, and 16th. And we're working really hard on making it live. Okay, we're working on it.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, I mean, I've been telling everybody because some bookstores are doing live events again, right? Like obviously, some of you have had them. So some bookstores are back live, and I've just been putting out there. I like people. I'm happy to travel. I'm happy to go to a live event for sure. And
really ought to
I'm
get you to Texas Library Association because this would be a great book to have in, and that's the next to the American Library Association. It's the biggest association of librarians, and everybody goes to that one.
Mhm.
And that would be a good place. I don't know who's publicizing your book or who your publicist is, but I'd certainly mention that because I think your book would be a good choice.
Yeah, I'll mention it to them. I'm also, the other thing is like, because I'm very, I was a queer kid and definitely an at-risk queer kid. So I am also really big on like, happy to like do youth events when I go somewhere, or teach like, a quick writing lab, to kids. And, like I think I did for Girlfriend Weekend last year online.
Yeah, that was great.
Workshop, right? Character, conflict, emotion. And I do that with people of all ages. I do that with kids, so.
Well, maybe we could do something with our Cool Cat Club, Mandy. Yay, Mandy, go ahead.
So David, in June, I am doing a writing storytelling workshop for the Rainbow Camp. So kids 12 to 17, LGBTQ, kids. And so I'm going to do something every day of the week. And they have a thing in the afternoon, and it gets better than this. It's what the section is called. And they have adults who, are speaking to kids saying, I made it. Like, I'm this, I'm doing that. At least I would love, I'm gonna bring you up. And it's like, if you are free one day, and I can't remember I'll get with you. If we could do like just a quick Zoom, and you can just introduce yourself and.
Absolutely.
That would be perfect. Really cool. Good idea.
But we really should do something on the Cool Cats Kid.
Let's do that this summer when you're not. Are you teaching this summer or? No. Okay.
Well, I'm teaching one class, but it's twice a week, which by my standards, I'm like, I have the summer off relatively. Right now I am teaching, are you sitting down? I am teaching 7 college classes while trying to finish the Christmas book by May 30. Yeah. So
overachiever.
Yeah, teaching 6 hours a week this summer, I'm gonna be beside myself. I'm gonna be like, what? Yeah.
Well, we're gonna keep you busy. We're gonna get you lined up for the Cool Cat Club, which is our middle grade and up reader. And then that's Mandy's started this thing, and we'll do that. And then let's get that going there. It's in Amelia Island, right? Florida?
Yeah, it is. So it's going to be in Yulee. Actually, we're off the island because there's not a huge community yet. Like, we don't have a big group. We still have some parents that are, really not so sure, whatever. So but off the island, there's a larger community. So we're working with that. Like, we're building with that, and it's,
I'm going to mention that to Jonathan Hope too at the Pat Conroy Center, because they've got their Conroy camp. You never know. They might want to do some kind of program. That would be really great. Because I know there are kids that I went to school with could have really used this book, and everybody could use it.
And it's been lovely. I'm hearing from, I get emails to my author website. It's interesting how people find me. Like a lot of kids will like post something and tag me on Instagram, and send like a message request through there. I've had just in the last month or so, I've had like college students at 3 different colleges reach out to interview me.
Perfect.
They're finding it. The book is finding, it's finding its people.
Spin me right around, David Valdes. What's the best way to reach you if they watch this YouTube channel, interview, that they could talk to you about maybe scheduling a school, Zoom or whatever, or college? What's the best way, David?
Yeah, so if they would like to reach out, because again, I'm definitely open to live events. I'm open to events that are, that are readings or signings, but also things like actually like, inspirational speaking, for youth or for writing workshops. Go to www.davidvaldeswrites.com, and that's Valdes with an S because I'm Cuban. That's one of the most common names, common Cuban names, but most Americans are more used to seeing it with a Z, but it's with an S. So www.davidvaldes.com, davidvaldeswrites.com, and use my author form.
And Mitchell Kaplan runs the Miami Book Festival, who has Books and Books in Coral Gables, Florida. And that would be a great place for you to go because they have such a large. Have you been?
They had me record. I'm trying to think what they had me do. Last fall, they had me record something for, I think it was for youth. I think it was for their youth program. But yeah, I recorded something for them. But I also, since that time, I discovered my birth sisters who live in Miami. So I go to Miami a couple of times a year now.
Perfect. Coral, it's Books and Books, Mitchell Kaplan. Tell him the Pulpwood Queen sent you. He is fantastic. And he's had me to the Miami Book Festival twice. And his bookstore is to die for. I mean, it's got a restaurant, coffee shop, and
I've been in it. I didn't realize, I didn't know that he was a Pulpwood connection, but I went there. I was just there in January.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, you have to look him up. He's a super nice guy. And he also has another bookstore off the coast on an island. So he's got the two stores. In fact, he was looking for a manager for it at one time. I was thinking, oh, if it wasn't for my grandson coming, I would have applied. That would have been so much fun. But back to you. Okay. So we've got this story. We've got the second book coming, and you've got a Christmas book. I don't know how you're getting all these things out. What is your writing process? I mean, when do you have time to do all this?
Well, it's a funny thing. Right now is the first time in my life where I'm like, I don't actually have time to get this all done. I'm actually actively thinking about just holing up for a week somewhere as soon as classes end, where I don't have my dog and I don't have my daughter and I can't be distracted just to keep going. But in general, I don't feel well if I don't have projects going, right? If I'm not writing something, and preferably two things, I don't feel well. I like to have a front burner project and then the other thing that I'm working on. Usually it's a matter of revising one thing while working on the next thing. And so the front burner project is the new thing, and the revision I can do, because I write best first draft material, original material, I write best before 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm a morning person. I could, if I wake, I turned 54 last year, and almost immediately, my body clock reset itself and I wake up these ridiculous hours, horrifying. But I could write from 4:30 or 5 in the morning and be, just fit as a fiddle, perfectly happy and content. But about 2 o'clock, I cannot write new material at all anymore. It's not worth it. I know what kind of material I'm going to churn out, right? So I honor my superstitions. I know how I write, when I write. But so after 2 is the time of day where I might revise old pages, or I might revise a past project. Or so mostly I make the time because I feel most like myself when I've got a lot going on and I'm writing. This school year, because I've had to teach so much, it's actually been a little bit harder. And the Christmas book was a project that a publisher brought to me, which has never happened before. They came to me and said, hey, would you be interested in doing this? This seems like a good fit. And I said, sure. And I committed to it, just trying not to think about how many classes I was teaching. So right now I'm just any spare minute that I'm not teaching, or cooking dinner for my daughter or whatever, I'm trying to write.
Wow. You know, you're the first person that's ever said that about when I'm not working, I don't feel like myself. I have to be doing something all the time or I get depressed.
Mm.
And I maybe that's a sign of a workaholic, but if I'm working on painting and then it's something's got to dry, I got to do something right away or else I get overwhelmed. Do you feel that same way in your when you have a time? Everybody goes, just sit and drink your coffee. I cannot sit and just drink coffee.
I mean, I cannot be working. I can like definitely like enjoy downtime to like, you know, go for a walk or like those sorts of things.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely like I got to be doing something kind of person for sure. I just went to Spain and
Saw that.
because I went all by myself and didn't have to worry about how other people do anything, I would, you know, I'd be up at, you know, I would be walking at 6 a.m, you know, climbing up the Alcazaba, you know, the fortress over Malaga. And then I would have a couple of art gallery visits built in, and then I would write for a couple of hours. And then I got a driver to go to Granada, right? Like that's, you know, that's just, I want to do everything kind of, yeah.
Yeah. So you see a book and maybe that trip, did you get inspired?
Well, that trip was meant actually, partly I talked myself into taking the trip because I was starting a new novel, an adult novel, like adult fiction, literary fiction, set in Malaga, and it was all plotted out, and I wanted to be in Andalusia, the southern part of Spain, and I wanted to be able to get really good notes on all of these different locales, which I did. But then while I was in Granada, while I was at the Alhambra, actually, this publisher called my agent and said, "Hey, would you be interested in this project?" You know, I'm actually going to just tell you that story. Ready for a story? Um, this past year was very difficult in some ways. There were some great joys, like the book came out, but you know, other things, you know, had been, you know, kind of challenging. My father died. A relationship that was very important to me ended, and I was working a ton, and I was just feeling like, where are things going? Like, what's happening? And I was just feeling stuck, like, and I needed to like reboot, and I needed to kind of recharge. And 2 years ago, I was supposed to go to southern Spain. I was supposed to go to the Alhambra, this trip that I'd saved up for. I'd been wanting for 20 years to go to the Alhambra. And if you don't know the Alhambra is this like 1,000-year-old fortress and palace complex from the Moors who came over from North Africa and ruled Andalusia for a long time. And the artwork, the carving and the intricate beauty and tile work of the Alhambra and stonework is considered among the like one of the apexes of Arab and Muslim art in the world.
Ooh.
And I've been wanting to go for, you know, for a solid 20 years. And I was supposed to go, I literally was supposed to land in Spain on the day that Spain locked down for COVID 2 years ago. So with this winter having been kind of, you know, rough and hard, I kept thinking about, you know, I'm going to go this summer, I'm going to go this summer. And then this spring, I hit on this idea of writing this book, which, you know, who knows when this book will happen now, but I hit on the idea of writing this book. But I had this strong sense, don't wait till summer, go now. So I took the spring break from my colleges and I made it all happen. I made this plan and pulled it off in about 4 weeks. I go to Spain and I get there, you know, I'm excited to be there. It's thrilling to be there. I go to the Alhambra and I stayed overnight in Granada, right next to the Alhambra, so that in the morning I could get up and see the gardens and do the palaces and everything. It's time tickets for the palaces. So I wanted to make sure I didn't waste a minute, right? It was just going to be this one chance I had. And it was supposed to rain during the day. So when I got up in the morning, I went to the gardens first because I knew it was going to rain. And the gardens, which are called the Generalife, are these, you know, these beautiful sweeping gardens with like fountains. And you have to kind of walk away from the Alhambra, through this kind of wooded path and turn around to head into the Generalife. So I do that and I turn around the corner to head into the Generalife, and in front of me are irises, which are one of my favorite flowers. And beyond the irises are the gardens, and you can see the ramparts of the Alhambra and the city of Granada rising on the hill beyond that, and the Sierra Nevadas beyond that. And it was so beautiful. I just felt profoundly, I mean, I can't even tell you, like this moment of the universe is watching out for me. I was supposed to be here at this moment. This is the reboot. This is the reset. I cried.
I'm crying.
I stood there and I just took it all in and I held it and I was like, okay, the universe is saying, move forward. You've got this. We got you. You're okay. Keep going. And it was such a profound moment. That when I was done the gardens, before I even did the palaces, I went into this little place that had art of the Alhambra, and I got this pendant.
Oh, it's
which
beautiful.
and the patterns are from the walls of the palaces, the Nasrid palaces. And I got this and I was like, I've never worn a necklace before. It's not, but I was like, this is going to remind me to always like keep moving forward and that things will be okay. So powerful enough, that afternoon, the publisher called my agent to say, hey, would Dave want to write this book? And the day was not done, kids. I have been teaching adjunct at more than one school at a time for 30 years. And that same afternoon, one of the schools where I teach at posted a job posting for a full professorship in playwriting. And they posted it because they wanted to keep me. They posted it tailored to my attributes, to what I offer.
Oh,
And
my
so
God.
I got up that morning, not sure how I was going to pay the bills entirely this summer and how much I would have to work next year. And I went to bed that night with a new book and the prospect of a full professorship, which has since been offered to me. And
Oh, congratulations.
Isn't that wild? Isn't it wild? I was like,
Yeah,
the
it
universe
is.
sometimes just says, you got this. It'll be okay.
Thank you for sharing that story, because a lot of people need to hear that, including me.
Yeah.
I drive Mandy crazy. I'm always going, what am I here for? And she goes, wait for it, wait for it. But
And the waiting is so hard, right?
it is really
The waiting
hard.
is
So I
hard.
just work myself silly about doing these paintings and book club and writing and everything that we do to just keep things going. But that's a really inspiring story. Well, one day when you write your memoir, that'll have to be a chapter.
Right.
Yeah.
I do think the universe, like when you said, I'm not waiting till summer, I'm going this spring because I need this. So I think the universe was just right there. And so when you took that step, the universe is like, you stepped into it. Here's what we have. Like you are ready, and I got you.
Yeah,
I got you.
That's exactly what it felt like. Mm-hmm.
Wow, Mandy, does that remind you of Girlfriend Weekend, our conversation? Wow. Because, it's been tough. Everybody's going, when are you going to go live? When we're going, we want to keep people safe. We don't want anybody to be sick or ill, but, and people are still getting it,
Yeah.
But that is a great story. Thank you.
And this is why I wish everyone would come on and listen.
I know it.
I remember the first time David came, and I just
I
fell
do
in love
too.
with him. He sat at the table with me one night and we just had the best conversation. I have his book. I went to find it and I couldn't find which bookshelf was on, and I didn't want to miss anything.
And I want to say something too. David, I want to thank you very much because
Ruthie, I recognize your voice. I don't see you. Open it up just a second, Mandy.
There's more people on the screen.
Ruthie landed.
yes, I'm here. I've been listening. So I want to thank you because so I have written nonfiction, And I've done 4 nonfiction books and working on a 5th one. And then I took your workshop for Girlfriend Weekend. And I've written some screenplays and some plays over the years, but I just never fancied myself someone who was going to write a novel. Never in a million years. And then I took your workshop and I really, something burst in me. And I said, I'm going to try to do this. So I've been working on it for about, like just in the brainstorming process, because it's kind of a complex thing, and still working on other things that I am doing. But it really is because of your class that my first character in the novel, not my protagonist, but actually a very important character, because you had us write. Yeah. And I still have that piece of writing, and it's pivotal for this particular character in the novel that will someday happen. So I want to thank you.
Glad to hear that. Thank you so much, Ruby. That makes me so happy. And
Makes me happy too, because all these authors volunteer so much of their time to do these things, and we don't always hear, so we just did just now. How cool is that, David?
It's great. I love it. Thank you. And it makes me happy partly because people, when I was in grad school, the big advice they told us was stay in your lane, stay in your lane. So I was a playwright. I was the only one actually in my department. And they're like, you have to stick to playwriting, you don't do other things. So when I got asked to write the nonfiction books, I was a little nervous because I'm like, I could hear that voice, jack of all trades, master of none. And when I wanted to switch to fiction, I started writing young adult fiction. I was like, well, I'm not supposed to, but I want to. And once an idea catches you, right? And now these last couple of years, it's so made it possible to be a single dad, right? Like the writing has actually like made so much possible for me. And because I didn't listen to that advice. So I'm so happy that you're like able to.
Well, I'm not a person that stays in one lane. I'm Mary Poppins, I've just got like that bag and just keep pulling it out, but it's not something that had even been front and center. But one of the things as a theater director and actor and professionally for a long time, now I'm a therapist, I've done it all anyway. But I used to take fiction and adapt it into performance. So I would, I would do that adaptation and then mount a production of whatever. And so it started to hit me like, God, this is in your blood. You got a degree in doing this kind of adaptation. So why aren't you writing something yourself? So you were really the turning point. So I want to, again, thank you so much. And I am going to do it. I don't know or really care what happens to it, but I am doing it.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited.
Oh, hi. Nice to meet you, David. I adore your novel. I just first page, I'm just laughing at Luis. His voice. Oh, don't throw up in your mouth, But first, congratulations. I toiled in the adjunct things for 15 years teaching creative writing, and it is so hard.
Yeah.
That much money. So good for you. That's great. But I had a question about your voice, the first person narrator in the novel. That is such a hard thing to pull off, because if you don't have an exciting, dynamic voice, it just wears really quickly. And you did just a really good job with that. I just had so much fun with all the characters. And so about research for capturing these young adults, I know you have a daughter. What more do you do to bring that to life? I would never be able to do that, I don't think.
Well, it actually, so in some ways it's like a cheat for me, because not only do I have a teenage daughter, so I have her and her friends, but I have, the YouTubes that she watches, the people that she enjoys watching. I'm hearing those voices, but I also teach 18-year-olds, and I have been, forever now. So I'm around teenagers at home and at work. And because I live in, Massachusetts, a voice like Louisa's, which is like an out gay kid who's pretty progressive, is super easy to access because I'm just, they're around me all the time. I have a good rapport with my students. So it actually was not, that was not hard. What actually has been a learning curve is I modeled Luis after very specific voices. There's definitely some of me in Luis for sure, but a lot of things he says were based on very specific people. But how Luis talked when I was writing this in 2019 versus necessarily what the same age kids would talk like now. I definitely have gotten some feedback from not kids I know, but like younger readers who are like, my friends don't talk like that, right? And I almost feel like I overshot in being faithful to the speech, in that it takes so long for a book to come out that now it's less faithful. With Brighter Than the Moon, which is set in the present, I really had to think a lot about what to include or not include language-wise for the three different narratives. That one, it's not, none of it's first person, it's all third person, but from three different voices, and they each have very distinct voices. And so I got young people representing each of the ideas. There's a young trans man, there's an African-American girl, there's a mixed straight boy. I had people their ages reading those passages and saying, thumbs up, no. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That's a good idea. That's great.
Yeah, if you're writing outside, I'm a big believer, if you're writing outside your own lived experience at this point, you want to be really thoughtful, right? And this is really, the young adult industry is so very thoughtful about this right now. But if you're writing outside your own lived experience, your first rule of thumb is, should I, right? Like, do I have access to this community? What's my real, even if it's not my people or my experience, am I part of this world in some way? Do I know people who are? What makes me feel like I can represent this in a way that is meaningful or thoughtful? That's your first step. And then even so, no matter what you choose, because my books are very intersectional. I always have characters of different races and orientations. So I, really have to think about that. So then when I'm really writing outside myself, then I and a lot of people now use what are called cultural competency readers. So they're people who are actually reading the text and saying, you are falling into a trope here. You may mean well, but you're falling into a hurtful trope. You're making a mistake. In Brighter Than the Moon, there is a minor character. He's not one of the three leads, but there is a sort of romantic foil that is on, so what he's on is arm crutches, right? I don't have any experience with that specific disability, and I called them braces. And there was a young woman who, she is a disability advocate who blogs her own life. And so she was the cultural competency reader for this character. And she was so happy to see the character and that he gets to be funny and that he has like a romantic side. But she said, my big question is, did you mean crutches? Are you talking about arm crutches? You keep saying braces. And she's like, braces are these heavy things that are in our shoes. That's footwear. And I was like, oh my God. So it's like, now I've got this like ridiculous image of he's waving his braces around at one point, but it's his feet. I didn't know that. I actively always for years have thought they were called braces. They're not, right? So a cultural competency reader can say, you don't even know the language right here, right? So that's something I did for, it's interesting because I have a lot of trans and gender nonconforming friends, and yet the gender nonconforming reader for one of the characters said, can you actually hear the sort of echoes of some of like the things in this in your language that I wasn't even thinking about, gendered language that you just toss about without even thinking. So that's more than for the teen voices, it's for voices outside my own culture that I've really like trained my eyes on in the last couple of books.
Where do you
Lord,
find?
as a backwoods Middle Tennessee woman, I'm like, They need that for Southern people that are trying to even just write Southern.
Oh my gosh.
It's like, no.
You know what happened? You know, so when you say that, so when I worked on the Rhinestone Sisterhood, I thought it was such a wonderful year. I loved the festivals and the hard work people were putting into them. And the girls were, they weren't like just run-of-the-mill beauty queens, right? Like the cattle queen had to learn 20 kinds of breeds of cattle that were important to the Louisiana market, the relative market share of each, what the state regulations were. Like these were smart girls who could doll up as well. And they had to do all the stuff. They had to be good sports for their towns, right? Like, because when you'd go to a festival, they'd all these queens would go to whatever festival. And then if the festival said ride a bull, they had to ride a bull, right? So these were kick-ass girls. And I loved what the festivals meant to the towns. So I wrote that book very seriously as a tribute to this tradition. And yet my publicist for that book did not understand that. She kept looking, she thought it was a joke, it was meant to be funny or campy. And I spent so much time that year. I would do book interviews. Back in the day of live appearances, I would do live appearances. And so often people would be primed for the wink, right? The wink that never came. And I was like, it's because our media sells Southern culture in the dumbest, slowest,
Absolutely.
most backwoods way. And as somebody who grew up in Maine, which is as north as you can get, let me tell you, I know from backwoods, right? There are dumb, slow, backward people in every state.
Yes.
And this like way in which the South is portrayed is just maddening.
It really is. Okay.
So what's your resource for finding these cultural competence readers? I've heard of this before and I think it's interesting.
So, there are organizations that do it, right? So you can Google, right? You could put in, a lot of places still use the term sensitivity readers. I don't love that term because sensitivity readers makes it sound like anybody who's being represented is being sensitive, right? Like it's like that it's somehow about their feeling as opposed to your what you have done. So you can Google sensitivity, you can Google cultural competency readers. I happen, just because intersectionality is such a big part of my work, I just know a lot of people in different communities that are passionate about these topics. I had two readers for the African-American girl in the story, even though my daughter is African-American, she read it too, but I had some outside people that didn't live with me read it. Those were people that I knew and trusted. The gender nonconforming reader was somebody that, is an activist that I knew. But like for the disability reader, I did not know any. And so I went through one organization and they were kind of smashed, like their people were all kind of busy and that wasn't going to work out. So you know what I did? I started like looking online, I started watching YouTubes by young disability activists, and way led into way until I found this young woman who was like YouTubing her life to show people what that experience was like. She had linked her Instagram. So I went to her Instagram and she had more posts there. So I reached out to her through Instagram, told her what it was. I paid all of the readers. That's the other thing, is don't ask for free emotional labor, right? Like don't ask for, for free labor from people unless you have something of value that you can return to them. Like if somebody needs like, a writing workshop or something. But so I didn't have much to pay them, but I paid all of them. I paid this young woman. So that's how I went about it.
That's great. So good. That would be a great writer's workshop, is because this is something that is going to be coming up more and more and more. And none of us know how to navigate those waters,
Yeah.
Mandy's always going, okay, now, Kathy, what did you just say? I go, what I just say? And she says, think about what you're saying. And you're so I'm from a different generation. I'm 65. My parents, you know, I think we're very open-minded people, but there are still things that you just don't understand. And then my son-in-law works as at a university, and he is in charge of disciplinary action and those type of things. And so he's always telling me, he'll question, why'd you just say that? He goes, think about what you said. And I go, oh, wow, okay. I really listen. That's great. This is such great advice for all this, right, Sarah? I think it's really
Yes, excellent.
And
wonderful.
one thing I would say about that whole issue, right, is that you don't know until you know.
Right.
You have to be able to be generous with yourself. You keep your ears open. Once you do know, then it's on you, right? Once you know, then it's on you. But every generation has their thing, and the kids right now that are coming up, they're so hyper attuned to it.
Really?
That you are definitely,
Oh, yeah.
you're gonna get some heat. But all you can do is once you know, then you know.
Right. And
That's it. I mean, and it's like, as long as your ears are open and your heart's open,
Mhm.
your mouth can follow. It's like, don't ever, as long as it's sincere. Wait,
Yep.
sorry, my dogs.
her little dogs that like a lot of attention. Well,
Well,
all great things. Yeah, let's open it up for some more questions. Does anybody
I have a comment, Kathy.
yeah,
At Ollie recently, we've had some bonuses on critical race theory and also on the LGBTQ
I never
community.
can get it
I
right.
have to think about it and get it right.
That's true.
But there were now I have to admit, I'm one of the youngest of the demographic in Ollie, but my age, the 60s, then we go 70s, 80s. We've even got a few 90-year-olds that are in there. And there was some blowback on, do we really need to hear this? And one lady said, yes, I have a member in my family and I need to know what is acceptable, because I feel like I'm sticking my foot in my mouth when I talk to them. And I don't want to do that. It's a grandson. And she said, I don't want to offend, but I don't know what to say. I don't know how to. And it was very informative. And I was going to ask David, recently I was at the UAH did the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion did a very nice little gathering one Friday afternoon, and some of us volunteered to sit with, in different booths and everything, because they did this whole thing. It was absolutely fantastic. And the dean, the acting dean right now, he was out there talking to everybody and making everybody feel included. And that makes a big difference on a college campuses. And one of the things that I do is, as long as I know they're not rushing to get to a class, I will stop students and ask them, what is your major? What are you wanting to do later? I'm telling you what, they love it. They love for you to just talk to them and show interest. I will give you an example. Bill and I donate. So we were invited to the president's board thing that he did for donors. And we were standing there eating hors d'oeuvres, and two young ladies walked up. And I asked them the same thing, and everything. Well, the president then gets up to speak, and he's talking about, we're not just global, we're intergalactic. Now, being that we're right there by NASA, that this was what the thing was. He said, we recently had a student write a request, and this was part of her degree, and she wanted to set up a phone call with third graders across the Huntsville area to talk to, like a Zoom like phone call, to the International Space Station. It took her a year, but she did it. She was
Wow.
standing at our table and she would not say anything. And her friend goes, she did that. She did that. And she goes, she helped me. She helped me. And it was just absolutely unbelievable. And, that kind of thing makes you feel so good, about young people. And that's one thing I like about being on that campus. And so, David, I would love to give your name to the office and let them contact you to talk with the students and everything. I think it'd be fantastic.
Absolutely.
You're going to be busy, David.
Well, I've already established I like that.
Fantastic.
So
Well,
what your daughter thinks about your book, about your newest book.
Wait, about my newest book, the Spin Me Right Round?
Yeah.
Okay, so my daughter has not read it.
Oh,
Time travel, no interest. Nope, but the thing is, she's read Brighter Than the Moon since the beginning, right? So she's way more into that than Spin Me Right Round. She was in the chat when there was the book launch. Porter Square Books did the book launch online, and she was in the chat, and somebody asked that question: "What does your daughter think of the book?" And she typed in, she's like, I'll read it sometime. JK. Yeah, so she hasn't read it. She's very, very excited.
she's honest. Good for her.
But yeah, no, she hasn't read it.
Well, that'll be one day she will.
She would like me to write a fantasy novel, but that's not really my mode. So
Tell her to write it.
yeah, well, and the thing is, she's a good writer.
There
She
you
doesn't
go.
do it much. When she was young, she used to write books all the time, and then that kind of trailed off, and she forgot all about it. And then, but no, she actually is a good writer. So maybe
she's a teenager.
She's a teenager. I mean, how old is she now? She's how old?
She'll be 17 next month.
Oh my gosh, I
I've
can't
watched
believe
her
it.
grow up. It's so
She is a
amazing.
doll. She is a doll. Yeah, we have, Kathy. We've watched her grow up.
You have indeed, yeah. Because when I went to the festival, she was, girlfriend weekend, she was all of 7. So she's growing up this weekend. Actually, Friday is first college visits.
Oh, wow.
Oh, get ready to get the Kleenex box out. I cried when my first one went off. So
Yeah.
it goes like in a blink of the eye. But I'm so glad you have so many things going. I'm really excited about this new class you're going to be teaching, and with full professorship. That's unbelievable in this time.
I've been teaching 30 years. 30 years. I can't even get my head around it.
Oh, I'm so happy for you.
Yeah.
Because when I got out of college, I was offered an adjunct professor at a small community college. And I said, I didn't ask how much they were going to pay me until I got over there. And I had to drive an hour there and drive an hour home. And she said, well, the pay's not great. And I go, I just want my toe in the door. And she said, well, it's only $632. And I go, a month? She goes, no, for the semester.
No way.
Well, how much? 4 months? I couldn't afford the gas. I couldn't afford the gas. So I couldn't that. Yeah, I was going, really? And, but I have a lot of friends that are adjunct professors, and they're either working to go to graduate school, or they're making, anywhere from $600 or $700 a semester.
Wow. Okay, that's, yeah.
And I go, how do you live on that? Well, my husband has a good job, but for 35 years, $632 a semester.
Yeah.
How do you guys add that up? That's like so below poverty level. It's not even funny. So anyway, but, well.
I started to say, that doesn't even sound like minimum wage.
Yeah, that's
It's like,
Not the hours you have to put in, and everything else. No, that's unbelievable.
I know so many people who are in the slave pit still
Yeah.
teaching for 3 different colleges or whatever. I had to do editing work on the side and whatever I could get, but I just couldn't work that many hours or I would have nothing to give.
Mhm.
Really applaud you, David, for getting.
Yeah. Hang in there. You're a good guy and you deserve it.
I tried. Thank you.
Yay! Well, we're excited. So we got 2 new books coming, and we've got this wonderful book that we're still putting out there into the world. So we'll get you all signed up for Cool Cats, and I really think about that our writers club. I would love to have you come in and talk about that some more. It's just an hour. We do
Yeah.
it once a month, so that would be really great. And maybe this summer, you know.
Yep.
So anyway, good luck on everything. I'm so glad the Spain trip was fruitful, and it sounds like the harvest is coming in.
Seems
So
like-
good for
yeah.
you. Any last questions, anybody, for David Valdes here? All right. Well, he's blogging all this week, and he is a model blogger because I didn't have to remind him. He's got them up. Thank you. The last 4 or 5 authors have been dream authors, and I've already heard from next week's author. I can't wait I go, is the cosmos changing? Because
Yes.
every day I go, okay, where's your blog? Was that today? And you're going, oh my gosh. So thank you. And I am enjoying them, and I'm looking forward to all of them. So and maybe some Spain pictures. I'm going to share some of the girlfriend weekend pictures that I found. That
Okay.
would be good to share. And if you have some, share them.
Okay.
People love pictures. So thank you, David. Anybody else want to say anything? Let's give him a big round of applause. Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone. This was so fun.
We love you. So
It's lovely seeing you again, David.
It's
Yeah.
good to see you, Betty. And it's good to see all of you and to meet some of you for the first time.
Yeah, well, we're going to be hanging out some more and come every Tuesday night. You're welcome. The Zoom link is the same every time. So just copy and paste that. And Mandy does that. And thank you. You
All
have a
right.
wonderful night.
Thank
with
you. Bye, y'all.
Bye. It's all about the story. Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.